All right. Good morning, everyone. Happy Thurby to you. I'm Wave Meteorologist Brian Good on this Thursday before we get to Oaks and Derby Day. And as you guys are fully aware, it's going to be a hot one today. One of the earlier 90-degree days we've ever had on record. About to take place in a matter of hours. At least we're on track for that anyway. But obviously, we need to talk about Oaks, Derby, and I know you're going to ask questions about next week. I ask for your patience on those kind of questions, as I'll get to that toward the very end here. We got a lot to cover in the short term. A lot of people coming into town. A lot of folks have plans. And I'm sure there's some of you that are not planning to go to any of the Derby events downtown, but you're hosting Derby parties and you're wanting to know, okay, what do I need to plan for? How do I need to protect my guests that are coming to hang out? Are you going to be outside watching it? Or are you going to be sitting on the couch or on the couch watching it? In that case, then the weather won't be too much of a problem, right, for you there. As always, you guys can ask your questions, or you just want to have general comments. I've already seen quite a few. Hello, Karen. Mark, you're heading up to Michigan to watch it up there on TV. We're going to be streaming it as well, so you'll be able to catch that. Let's see. Adam's already jumping out on next week. Adam, we'll talk about it, I promise. One step at a time. We got a lot of little baby steps to get through before we can get to the longer term, as you're about to see why I'm saying that. Okay, let's get into the outlook in the short term. And as always, we'll get into Derby and Oak. First off, look at this shot. Isn't this beautiful? Almost like a glass reflection there, right, of the Ohio River there in downtown Louisville. Where it's a very pretty start today. Love this. Gorgeous out there. Temperatures, though, will be the big story of the day. We're already off into the 70s. Now, keep in mind, 70s is where we normally would be for like a high temperature for the second day of May. Not exactly an early morning low. And look at even Salem, it's 77 at the moment, 75 down into 11 in Kentucky. So you already get that feeling, right? It already has that vibe. You look outside. I mean, yes, it's gorgeous, but it definitely feels like it's going to be a hot day out there. And while humidity won't be overly high, which is a good thing, that usually takes place a little later in the summer season. And I do think it's going to be a very hot and humid setup this summer. So enjoy these days where you can get very, very warm without a lot of humidity, because they will not be common in the days ahead for sure. All right, we got a quiet radar. We are only tracking a very small chance there could be a brief downpour that will try to pop this afternoon. It's hard to see, but there is it's hard to call it really a warm front. That's a boundary that's pushing in from the west and heading northeast out of town. As it pulls northeast out of town, there is a chance of one or two small showers, downpours will try to form in that flow, but they will be very, very small. In some cases, not even enough to cover even one neighborhood. So they will be teeny tiny, but we'll keep that chance in there just in case. Otherwise, heat is the big story. Our outlook for Oaks Day will involve really the energy that'll come out of this area, eventually out of Texas and Louisiana, and head northeast late tonight into early tomorrow. So we already see our Oaks troublemaker showing up here on the radar. So we know it's coming. So that part's at least easy, that we know that rain is coming, but the type of rain, how it evolves in timing is the question. All right, this afternoon again, 90 the expected high. That is not a record. The record is 94. I'm hoping that stays safe. Otherwise, that's a whole other story, right? So let's get into Futurecast. As always, the red area indicates the fuel that is available. You get into the reds, usually it just means general fuel, which is going to be common this time of the year. You get into the gold and yellow colors that may show up. That's when you get into a little more of a concern of building a lot of fuel and severe risk begins to skyrocket. So today we have some fuel. We're there. That's why we'll keep that low rain chance in the outlook. All right, here comes our low pressure that is going to be moving in. And it's really a cold front and a low both kind of combining, heading north and east at the same time as we head into Oaks Day. Rainfall timing. I think this is going to start as early as about 4 to 5 a.m. We'll begin to get some of the earlier showers moving in across central Kentucky, right into Louisville and Churchill Downs early in the day. Do not see this being anything other than just rain that's moving in, but it could be fairly widespread. So the rain chance is fairly high in this first little slug that'll move in. Again, 4 or 5 a.m. through about really midday tomorrow, we'll have a general light rain. That will continue again all the way through about 12, 1 o'clock. But we start to get into a question mark around 2 to 3 p.m. And that question mark will be on the backside after this first round of general rain moves by. There is a window that I'm seeing where we can actually go partly cloudy for a few areas. And this is, once again, a setup where the sun is bad. We don't want the sun coming out. We would love that for Churchill Downs. I get that. But it would add to the problems, and we don't want that. So really, we just want it to dry out. It doesn't have to go sunny, just dry out. That'd be nice. But there is a chance that we could get a few sun breaks. Again, I'm seeing that risk a little more near and south of 64, really a Kentucky issue versus Indiana. Why is that a problem? Well, we don't have a lot of wind energy. In fact, we have very little wind energy involved across the Ohio Valley, especially aloft. But if the sun comes out, we would be able to build up quite a bit of instability because this is a very saturated system. I was looking at the latest soundings, and they're very much a tropical-like look to them. So a couple of things. One, if we get the sun to come out, then we will end up getting scattered thunderstorms that will then light up on the radar. And lightning is one of the hazards, obviously, at Churchill Downs, especially within 8 miles of Churchill itself. That becomes a problem on any type of issues when it comes to impacting races and crowds, especially in the infield. So we've seen that before, I think twice since I've been at Wave that has happened. Was it even last year or was it the year before? It was recent. We had to face that similar risk. We came close, but we ended up being able to avoid any big issues with that. This is a setup that I think can feature some lightning as well as very heavy rainfall. Can we get severe weather out of this? Yes, to be blunt, you can get severe weather out of it. It will be in the form of not really hail. These soundings look very saturated. It'll be more of an issue of damaging winds more than anything because there is a bit of low-level wind to work with here. But these things could get fairly tall, and you can get some very efficient rainfall producers, and eventually they will collapse. In some cases, you can get a strong gust of wind. So it's a zero threat. Right now, I think if we're going to see anything like that, most of the high-res data I've looked at is a little further south than even I-64, a little more around the parkways. Bardstown, E-Town, and Southern Kentucky stands out to see that potential show up. I'm not seeing that extend right now into Louisville, but it's a little too close for comfort to say that it won't happen. So I think we still need to watch that potential. But again, it really will depend on any sun breaks tomorrow afternoon. If we stay overcast, this second slug of moisture will just basically be rounds of rain, a little more on the heavier side for the late afternoon time period. But if we get some sun, we may have to start adding in lightning into the mix and perhaps even a few strong storms. So we don't want that, but I can't rule it out. What really is standing out to me, though, is that these, as I mentioned, these are like tropical like downpours. Some of these rain totals that are coming in are really, really high. I'm talking about a few inches of rain that are showing up. And sometimes the models, we call this convective feedback. It's not as common as it used to be. Modeling has changed a lot. But when we see that feature, it does get our attention. And I do think if you are near and south of the parkways, you need to be fully aware of that chance. There could be 1 or 2 very heavy rainfall cells that form. They look isolated. I don't see a widespread, 2 to 4 inches or anything like that. It's very isolated little pockets, but I'm seeing it on almost every single high-res data I've looked at. So that's why I say that we need to watch it. I mean, the models are trying to tell us something, right? They're trying to give us hints of what the atmosphere can do. We need to be paying attention to that, and that's what we're doing. At least want to mention that could develop as we into the late afternoon hours for tomorrow. I think the window to watch, and I'll show it to you, is going to be roughly around 3 to 4 p.m. to about 7 p.m., which I know is close to the run for the Lilies, right? But that's what I'm watching there for maybe some heavier pockets of rainfall. Again, Churchill is going to be very much on the edge of that because a lot of that will try to feed into it, but should weaken. More of a general rain for Indiana and up 71 there. Once we get past this, we do, and there's the hint right there. There's one other, that's about 10, 11 o'clock. One last little hint of it there. I think that's roughly around Marion County that this particular model shows. I mean, they're all varying on where they want to put the heavier cells. 1 minute it's E-Town, 1 minute it's Fort Knox, 1 minute it's Lebanon, Kentucky. So that's why I can't tell you that one given location is going to get this. I can just tell you that there will be 1 or 2 spots that are really showing up that we need to watch. It could just rapidly form. It just will depend on the pockets of any breaks in the clouds that we can get. Otherwise, even without the thunderstorm potential on the table, I do think this has the potential to produce at least 1 inch of rain, and that would include Churchill Downs. The wettest Oaks ever is 1.61. Right now, the totals are coming in under that. Good. But after 2018, never say never. But it certainly will be a day where you need ponchos. You can't bring umbrellas. So bring ponchos. You'll need that. Dress accordingly, especially if you're going to be in the backside. Wear boots, right? You don't want to wear the nice dress shoes. You're going to be walking through that grass or any of the mud. Same for the infield. Dress accordingly. Infield's a whole other ball game usually, although it's getting a little more fancier than recent years. But just plan for ponchos. Definitely bring that because you can get some there. But after what I learned in 2018, it's very hard to find them, and so you don't want to be stuck in that situation. And the area that you're hanging out in may not have shelter to hide you from the rain. So bring the ponchos. Make sure they have hoods on them as well, so you can cover your hair up as well. The hair's precious. And then we'll keep an eye on any lightning threat as well. I'll be out there tomorrow all day, as well as the rest of our team. We'll be live, so we'll be tracking it, and we'll have a crew here as well watching things. So if things get a little out of hand on a couple strong storms, we'll be ready for that. So we've got you covered on everything. So we're watching it, I promise, on this entire setup. I just think it's going to be not exactly a pleasant, beautiful looking day, unfortunate, but still. It could be worse. It could be a cold rain, and it won't be a cold rain. So I'm trying to find the silver lining in this. If you have derby parties over, make sure that you've got your visitors taken care of, and be aware of any lightning that could be in the area. The Wave Weather app, by the way, when you download it, the lightning indicator is like instant. So make sure to have that on handy, as that would be very helpful. And it'll travel with you. If you're heading to Churchill Downs and you live in, say, LaRue County, make sure to hit the follow me button on the top of your settings for locations. And the app will just follow you wherever you're at on your phone, and it'll issue alerts based on where you're at and your radius within your location. So that's a very helpful tool to have on a day like tomorrow for sure, and Derby. But then after this, here's some good news. We do see quite a bit of widespread cloud cover, low overcast, drizzle that will linger into Derby morning. But I am seeing hopeful signs here. Let me get rid of my marker. Hopeful signs that will begin to break up a bit into midday in the afternoon, to where we could go partly, if not even mostly sunny for a few hours Derby afternoon. That would be nice. That would take the rain chance. It's not very high now. It's like 30%, 40% early in the day. It would take it down drastically in the afternoon. That would be a nice little gift. So there is still a hopeful outlook for Derby, not so much for Oaks, which has been a theme all week. And notice back to the west, to Illinois, we do have thunderstorms that are rolling in. This broken area of thunderstorms will eventually move in, but that'll be later Derby night into the wee hours of Sunday. Though we'll be watching for a band of maybe some rain and thunder. I do not see anything severe with that, FYI. All right, so here's your summary on the rain chances. And what we've done here to try to explain this, again, we get toward 4 or 5 a.m. That's when the rain chance just skyrockets, right? This is the steady rain, likely in the morning hours. Then we get into the breaks that can happen, maybe a partly sunny sky that should lead to another uptick in rain and thunderstorms for the afternoon. And then we'll see all that kind of shift off to the east. And this is more of a drizzle scenario that will head into Derby morning. And then we'll account for just a very low rain chance for Derby afternoon, but a spike later Derby night. That may be a little too soon, probably closer to midnight. But that's kind of the train ride that we look to be on for Oaks and Derby Day. Does this all make sense? If so, type 41.25. 41.25. If it makes sense. If not, ask your question, and I'll get to it after the next set of data that we got to cover, which is what Adam was talking about, and I'm sure Brandy wants to know as well, and Ashley. We have a setup that is going to feature an included low moving into the northern plains. Why? What does that mean? That means the low pressure is basically cutting itself off. It starts to lose some of its fronts, which makes a bit of a challenge on as far as placement of where the fronts will be. But in general, because it's such a massive low and it's a blocking pattern, we end up with a very unstable atmosphere that will be developing in the plains, Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, very large area of the country actually, will be in a very stormy setup that will start for parts of Monday. It will continue into Tuesday with rounds of showers and storms. It'll continue into Wednesday. It'll continue into Thursday. perhaps even Friday, maybe even into Mother's Day. It is a very active setup. And what we'll have to face here, the biggest issue we got with that outlook is you get a round of storms, they fade out, but then you got to look at the atmosphere at that point and see whether or not you have a lot of low clouds, leftover drizzle. Does that taper down the next round of severe weather, or does that drizzle and cloud cover dissipate, and then you reheat things back up and you got another round of severe weather, which is what we got to be aware that is on the table here, is that we're going to see a round of storms, they fade, another round of storms, they fade, another round of storms, and they fade. And it's going to get old really fast. But I do think we need to watch it. I think hail is one of the bigger issues that will show up. Damaging winds for sure, but hail, I think, will be a little more of an issue next week than what we've had so far this season. And obviously, very heavy rainfall. If you already are dealing with a very saturated ground, your neighborhood, your terrain, where you live at, this is going to really aggravate that into next week. A lot of rivers and streams will begin to react to this. And one thing I've been looking at is just the overall steering flow. When you look at the upper level winds, you can see we get into that wind field that's very much west to east, and it just gets stuck, generally right across, again, the Ohio Valley, all the way into Texas. And it's a blocking pattern. So because that low is occluded, we need something to come in and shake this up. And that is going to take some time for that to happen. So the outlook from CSU and SIPS, all right, this is Colorado State, the AI. Sorry, it's a little squished. But we start to enter at least a low end severe risk on Monday. I'm not too concerned about Monday right now. We do enter a severe risk on this on Tuesday. We are really highlighted on Wednesday, and we continue on Thursday. This is SIPS. SIPS is very similar every single day, but it likes Thursday more than CSU does, but they're all very, very similar. What does this all mean? Well, we're likely going to have an alert day at least out for 1, maybe 2 days for next week. And I'm hoping we don't have to extend it out more than that, but I do think we'll have alert day here very soon, flagged for at least next week, to make sure you guys are aware. I think a lot of you weather watchers, you model watchers are fully aware of this. So I'm more worried about those that are more focused on Oaks and Derby and may not be paying attention to what is coming our way next week. And I just want to give you a heads up. And obviously, it's too early to get into the finer details because we don't know how each wave is going to behave and how one's going to affect the other. But the point of alert days is to bring awareness. So I think we're getting to that point. All right. So there you go. Short and sweet, sort of. Question, Tide. Can you give us something of a severe weather outlook for the rest of May? Approximate. I do have a chart I can show. I don't have it with me. It was indicating not only this round of severe weather, but obviously as we get a little more into Memorial Day, it does spike again. But Todd, I'll try to remember to show this. It may take me until after Oaks and Derby, to be honest, to be able to focus on that. But I will. I'll make sure to get that included in there. All right. Twana, you're getting complicated with these numbers. What's complicated? 41.25. It's already old. I'm tired of spring. Let's see. Brandon, let's see. I notice even in most models next week, the wind doesn't change a ton as you go higher in atmosphere. That's good and bad. You're going to have some speed shear, which is why I think straight line wind is going to be an issue. But I think overall, it's the idea that you don't have a lot of change in the wind fields is what's going to lead to repeated rounds. And again, that's why I think flooding will be up there as well as the hail threat, just because we're going to be very warm next week. And it may not seem like it. We're not going to hit 90, but it is going to be a very warm profile for the atmosphere in general. All right. So that is going to be able to support some very heavy tropical-like downpours. And at times, if you can get any type of dry pocket that can get mixed into that, you can get, especially a lot, you can get some larger hailstones out of that. But it's early to gauge on that. Okay. So we'll be watching it. Let's see. Emily, is it going to be a setup like the western part of the United States? Very good question. No. This is a different setup. This is a little more of, I would say, a summer setup. I feel like the 4th of July last year comes to mind. This reminds me of the 4th of July with the angle that it is and repeated rounds coming in from St. Louis. We saw that. We saw a few MCSs that came in. So it reminds me of the 4th of July weekend, which featured a lot more straight line wind events than it did tornadoes then at that time. But I think we were in enhanced risk, I want to say, for 3 days. One of the longer periods I've seen that happen. I'm not saying this is the case, but if you want me to compare it, that's what it reminds me of. It does not remind me of what's been going on in Iowa and Texas. That is, the wind field's crazy wild out there, but the angle too, the way the system moved in with the dry line pushing into the plains, that is really your massive supercells that develop. This is going to be a different scenario altogether on that. Still not great, but different. Okay. Adam, humid like summer. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to move much day and night. I think we're going to have warm overnight lows next week as well, because it's going to be so humid out there. Okay. I know everyone's got a lot of questions on next week. I didn't see more questions on Oaks and Derbies. I think you guys are set. I think you guys are aware that rain's coming. You know that you got to get ponchos. You know there's a chance of thunder. You know there's a chance for very heavy rain. And you know there's a chance for a promising setup that could materialize by Derby afternoon. I'm going to assume, since you put 4125, that you guys are good on that. All right, I got to run. I got to look over more data that's just not coming in to get ready for the midday show. And, of course, we're going to have more throughout the day today and to this evening. So stay close to the forecast. Don't just assume that this is the forecast that's going to be set in stone. It will keep evolving. So it's important that you keep checking back for the finer details. All right. Enjoy your Derby, guys. Stay cool out there. Take it easy. Wear the sunscreen. I'll see you on midday.